and welcome to the Early Career Researcher podcast, your sometimes regular discussion on all things relating to the life and work of early career researchers working in the humanities. I'm Charlie, and today I'm joined by Olivia and our new guest, Charlotte. Say hi, Olivia and Charlotte.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. We'll introduce Charlotte properly in a moment. But Olivia, we haven't met you for a while, so tell us, how have you been? Have you been busy doing to-do lists? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so many to-do lists, preceded by to-do lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been all right. I've been pretty busy. I'm very solidly into my writing up here. So I'm trying to finish a chapter a month over the summer. I have drafts of all of them, and I'm trying to turn them into kind of relatively finalized chapters, and that's
Yeah,
pretty intense.
That's
yeah.
impressive.
And thanks. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but I've managed one. And at the same time, I was submitting a grant application last month, so I'm on
Oh,
tenterhooks waiting to hear about that. And
oh, yeah.
yeah, we'll
So
see. So I
everyone,
don't.
everyone listening to this who's done a PhD is thinking, "Oh no."
Yeah, the
Trigger
fear, the
warning.
fear is setting back
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
I'm very much in the midst of the fear, but I'm also trying to like manage my time as well as possible and do
yeah.
nice things on the weekends and
It's
you
difficult,
know.
isn't it? Because I really like variation in my work. Like I like to do like 4 or 5 different things in a day, but you've got
Mhm.
that like you can't really afford that, can you? So
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly at some point you just have to do the thesis. I'm coping with it by putting things that are not work into my day. So I'm doing
yeah.
yoga every day, and I've taken up knitting, which I
Oh,
kind of do between. Knitting is good because I can do kind of one row in 5 minutes.
yeah,
So I can take a 5 minute break during my
yeah.
Pomodoro timers and do a row of knitting, and then come back to work.
We
So
might
I'm breaking it up with other
we
things.
might come back to knitting later, and you'll see why, dear listeners. Um, let's introduce Charlotte. Charlotte, say
Mhm.
hello. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
We're
I'm
very
Charlotte.
we're very happy to have Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte, we haven't met you before. Give us a general introduction um, to yourself, right? What career stage are you at, and kind of what do you work on, and that kind of thing. You don't have to tell us your field of study if you don't want to, but to the listeners, Charlotte, hello.
Well, hello, everyone. Yes, I mean, thankfully, I am beyond the stage of Olivia and I have finished my PhD. So, very grateful not to be going through that last year of, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing I should be doing? What am I doing? Um,
Mm.
Who
and I'm
am I?
currently,
I
yeah,
mean, that doesn't
exactly.
change though, does it? I still think that.
Oh, no, definitely not. But no, I'm currently at the kind of early career research stage. I've just finished a fellowship, kind of inclusion, participation, engagement. So doing kind of exciting stuff with my research, right? Coming outside of the library and connecting with communities and artists and other researchers, and that's been really fun. And then hopefully moving on towards maybe turning some of these things into articles or bigger postdoc applications. So that's really where I'm at
Cool,
right now.
cool. We'll have to get you back for an episode on um, engagement and outreach and public discussions and stuff.
Charlotte did some really interesting stuff with that.
Who?
Charlotte did
Me.
some really
Oh,
interesting stuff with that.
me.
Yeah, I've seen some of the outputs. They're really
Oh,
good.
thank you.
It's really
Thank
cool. I have to say, like I work in London, and I'm a medievalist, and I would say I'm in great company here, but I am also very grateful for that community for allowing such kind of contemporary kind of experimental research.
Oh,
Mm.
So yeah.
well, you're whetting our appetite, and Olivia has as well by bringing it up. So let's get you back. Let's get you back. But great to meet you, Charlotte. We're looking forward to having a conversation with you about today's topic. So, in our previous episode, which you can go back and listen to on our Spotify page, Rachel and I had a nice, intimate discussion one on one about how we write conference papers and the things that we feel can make a good or a bad experience when presenting those conference papers. So today, we wanted to give a more general reflection on conferences as a whole, what to expect, how to have fun, and maybe how not to have too much fun, because this can happen at conferences too. As ever, you can leave reviews or comments on our Spotify feed. Follow us on Twitter at ECR Podcasters and on Blue Sky, where our name is also ECR Podcasters. You can email ecrpodcasters@gmail.com, and we'd love it if you have ideas for topics you'd like us to talk about in future episodes. There's the admin. Right, let's go. Let's talk about conference. The
I love
first
a
question I'm
conference.
going to ask you both.
Yeah, I should say, sorry to interrupt you, Charlotte. I should say I invited Charlotte on this particular episode because she's one of the most outgoing people I've ever met in the academic space. And I actually, oddly enough, Charlotte and I have never been to a conference before, but I already know what Charlotte's like at conferences. So I just thought it'd be so great to have her on the episode to talk to us about like how to navigate the weird social world that is an academic conference.
Yeah, it's definitely definitely a landscape that one needs to navigate well and climb. But I am actually a big advocate of having too much fun at a conference. So you know, see how you want to take that.
Okay, that's
right.
fine as long as you can tell us about the recovery process the next morning.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
Explain yourself. Anyway, Charlie, I interrupted. What was your first
Well,
question?
my first big question is, what are conferences for? So, like, when you go to a conference, I'm going to ask you a couple of things. What do you like about conferences? And, like, what do they bring you that you can't get if you don't go to any conferences? So, like, Charlotte, I'm randomly going to pick you first because you're at the top of my screen, and then Olivia, and then I'll chuck in some rubbish. So, Charlotte, what's a conference for you?
For me personally, a conference is about community, and it's about being exposed to multiple different ideas that are both related tangentially to your research as well as specifically. I've been to about, I was trying to work this out, I've probably been to about 10 conferences in my time. Now, I did my PhD part-time, so I did this while balancing multiple different jobs and my research.
Amazing.
And I always found
we need you on this podcast. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And you know, between conferences, national, local, international, you know, small student-led ones and much bigger kind of university hosted ones, you know, colloquia, all of this kind of range of what you would class as conferences. I think they're an opportunity to see what's happening on the ground. So, and I really enjoy going to conferences, meeting people. I love a little finger buffet, not gonna lie. And you know, and the quality of the wine is whatever you'd want to consider it, but it's all part of the fun.
Yeah.
Best thing about a conference was I went to a conference in Toronto, and I was introduced to half and half milk in my coffee.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely made my day.
Thing. Rachael should be
very
here.
North
She's
American.
Canadian. She should be here.
Yeah.
We have half and half in America as well. Very North American thing.
Well, you probably don't want to hear about. Basically, I go to conferences for the food. But
that is outrageous, I have to say. You're the only person who's ever said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say it's a delight, but I enjoy it, right? Like you enjoy a student bar, like that is part of a
free food, yeah.
environment. I suppose
it's
what
funny.
I like is the vibe. I like the vibe.
You like the vibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny.
Big.
I'm not the opposite of that. But I think about them very differently, which is I also think about them as a chance to form community. But I think I'm still getting my head around how much I get out of conferences kind of academically speaking and how much I get out of them from just a kind of personal mental health, networking, community sense. So some of the best conferences I've been to have been like really, really tightly organized, really, quite small, quite topical on subjects that I don't feel I have an enormous amount of expertise in, but I'm kind of dipping my toe in the water, and I might try to find like a small workshop / conference thing on this topic coming up and go along to that, just to get a sense of what's treated as kind of common knowledge in that field and what's kind of up
Yeah.
for debate and that kind of thing. And those are the ones that I come away feeling like, oh, okay, I really got something out of that.
Yeah.
But then again, that's not most of the conferences I've been to. And most of the conferences I've been to, the topics are so wide and diverse that I'm not going to get anything like specifically content related out of it necessarily. Instead, I've had to open my mind up a little bit to this, but I'm you know I basically feel less alone. I go to them
Yeah.
and I feel less alone, and I feel like I feel like part of a community, and I feel like
Yeah.
something, like I'm not the only person working on these kinds of questions. There are people working on these kinds of questions
Yeah.
in a field 1,000 miles away from my
Yeah.
own, or like not 1,000 miles. It's always a humanities conference, but I went to one on questions of value a couple of years ago because I work on conceptions of value as applies to medieval manuscripts, and there were people there who worked on value in literary studies in the 18th century, and I remember being like, oh, this isn't really relevant to me. But then the longer I spent there, the more I was like, but this is good. I'm really getting something.
Sometimes I feel like the stuff you know least about and care the least about can be the most interesting because there's no pressure to
Yeah.
like when you listen to a paper, you think in your field, you're thinking, do I get all these references? Do I know everything about this already? Does this person know more than me? But when I go to a session that's totally different, you can sometimes be like, oh, I don't need to care about all that stuff. I had a question,
Yeah.
a quick question. Um, how do you hear that conferences are happening? Like, where do you go to, like, if someone's listening to this thinking, oh, they sound amazing. These guys are talking about conferences and it sounds so cool. I need to find a conference to go to. Where do you hear about them in your
It dep-
experiences? Like,
it really depends. Like I'm a Chaucerian, that's my background. So
ah,
they like
Chaucerian. If nobody
yeah,
knows what that means, what does that mean, Charlotte?
our specialist in Geoffrey Chaucer.
Chaucer.
That was what I wrote my PhD on. So late medieval literature. And they have a big biannual conference called NCS, so New Chaucer Society. And it's kind of the place to be if you work in Chaucer studies or you work in late medieval literature. So that was always an aim for me to get to that at least once in my academic career, because it happens, either in America or Canada or in the UK, and about that because that's what your specialism is. I think there are also the little small ones that will often be led by postgrads. So all of the universities will have postgrad conferences, and it's a good idea if you just want to get started, is to maybe just attend some with friends. Like, let's say your friend is giving a paper at a small postgrad conference in a different university, go along with them. Like, make it a day trip if you can, turn it into a little trip. I think that's one of my key things. One of the things I also enjoy about conferences is turning it into a trip. Like, don't be afraid to make this an enjoyable experience for you. I think, Olivia, what you were saying earlier was really key. Like, you have to be open. Like, you aren't going to go to a conference and find someone saying exactly the thing that you want to hear in the way you want to hear it in your topic with the same questions. You're just not going to get that. So
because nobody else is doing that. You're the only one doing it.
And that's like quite validating in some ways. But
and
it
if
can
they
make
are,
you
you
feel
then
quite lonely.
panic, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. But it can make you feel a bit lonely. So, I've given papers before, and this is probably some of the things I don't like about conferences is you give papers and, no one asks a question, or that, you don't really
It doesn't
get
seem to
much,
land.
yeah, you don't really get much like vibe from the audience. And you think, oh no, like I've really missed the boat here, or I've really kind of like not engaged properly. And then, with this conference, I had quite impressive academics come up to me and be like, oh, that was really interesting. Have you read this? Have you done that? So I think, and I spoke to someone later at the conference and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed your paper. And they were like, and I was like, oh, I saw you at mine. Like, you know, did you have any thoughts? And they were like, yeah, it was really good. You sounded so together. So it's that perception, expectation kind of situation. Try not to get too in your head about it, because everyone's there for their own personal reasons.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
I do think a lot of the time not getting questions means that you were very clear.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
Very clear and
we've
concise.
got questions on the list. Like, yeah. When you were talking about like I gave a paper and it didn't really land and it was a bit flat, I was thinking, yeah, I've done job interviews like that. I had PTSD.
Yeah.
I find conferences on Twitter,
Yeah.
may it rest in peace. I used to have
Or
Twitter
Blue
as
Sky, where you
was
can find us at
X,
ECR Podcasters.
or indeed Blue Sky, which I am not on, but we are on collectively. I had a really good network built up there of people in my field and people working on similar questions, and the better that gets, the more likely you are to get things pushed to you that are relevant. The best conference I ever went to was advertised to me on, or just popped up on my Twitter feed. I've had senior academics who know what I'm working on forward me notices of conferences. And also I pay attention to the seminar boards at universities that work on the kind of information that the kind of fields that I work in, and sometimes they advertise a conference or a workshop or something on a topic that's of interest to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
also
like,
think, sorry,
go Charlotte, you go.
I was gonna say, I also think if you can't find what you're looking for, make your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Like,
good.
We'll have a whole episode on that. Yeah.
genuinely, like if you don't find something you're working on, create something new.
Yeah,
An
yeah. Reach out to
episode
people,
on
make it
planning
happen.
a conference. Great idea, Olivia.
Brilliant.
Now you have to plan a conference to go along with it.
Oh, the Early Career Researchers Podcast Conference.
Conference. More on that later. Yeah. I want to. I'm going to move on from like what we like about conferences, because clearly we're advocates of conferences, right? We'll talk about the hard stuff later. Can move that down the schedule. Yeah, I was thinking, how many have I been to when I was putting this together? And I'm kind of old. I am an early career researcher, but I'm like an old early career researcher, I reckon. I'm a perennial
Sure.
ECR, probably about 50. If you include ones
Good
in my
Lord, Charlie.
institution, it might be like 70, because like you get these like day workshops and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd also it depends on what you work on, right? Some fields are more inclined to want to do conferences and to showcase work and to demonstrate. I think I actually did listen to your previous podcast on actually delivering the paper, and you know the amount that you and Rachel have gone to, I was like, I have not done nearly enough as that. But I'm a close reading specialist, so there are no visuals on my paper. Like I do a PowerPoint, but it's got a couple of quotes on. So I think, and that also that work is not as instant. There's no instant gratification with that. Like it takes a lot longer to develop stuff, and there's usually more specific conferences that apply to the work you're doing. So I think it really does depend on what your field is, what your specialism is, and then in addition, kind of what Olivia was saying about the values conference is like what your questions are. And I think you can find conferences like outside of your period but related to the same questions, or you know on the same topic but not on the same literature, or vice versa, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I've been to about the same you have, Charlotte, maybe about 10, and my supervisor told me to stop going to conferences at some point, and she was like, you have to do some work. So, but I think, Charlie, given that you've been to almost 100 conferences by your own reckoning, I think maybe you're best placed to tell us how best to prepare to attend a conference.
Yeah. I mean that's a really cool question. These days, like how do you get ready for a conference? You know, what do you need to be doing before you go? Is something that I do less of now because I'm more busy, and usually they just creep up on me, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to this conference in 5 days, and I haven't written my paper, and I don't know what I'm doing. How do you prepare to go to conferences? First thing is obvious. If you're giving a paper, you write your paper, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've had all kinds of horror stories from people writing their papers in their room the night before and all that kind of stuff. you don't want to be doing that, right?
Mm.
Go back
On
and
the
listen
train
to
with the
on the
M&S
train,
picnic.
on the
Yeah.
on the plane. I've seen whatever. Go back and listen to our previous episode on writing a paper if you want more advice on that. Shameless plug. What I tend to do is have a really good look at the program a few days before. And if you're going to a really big conference, they'll probably put the program online in a kind of big PDF that you can download and browse through. If it's a small conference, they'll send you by email, a couple of pages and work out like what are you most looking forward to going to see. If there are parallel sessions, so things happening at the same time where you can choose which one to go to, you might want to be thinking, which one do I want to go to based on the topics, or do you know anybody giving a paper, you like their work, you want to hear them again? Or we can say more about this later, which sessions do you want to have as downtime, right? So a massive thing that I learned way too late was that you don't have to go to every session of a conference and you
Yeah.
can have a break, right? So it's like planning a schedule, but also like not meticulously planning it, because stuff will happen. Someone might say, let's go for coffee instead of going to the next session. And that's a nice thing to do. Or like there's a different session that you didn't know about and come to that. So I'd say like look at the program, decide what you want to go to. The other thing that what I sometimes do, people do it to me actually more and more, is they'll write to you or you write to them, arranging to meet up and chat about work around the sessions. So if there's someone who works on something related to you or someone who you want advice from, don't feel afraid to write to them and say, would you mind giving me half an hour of your time so that we can talk more about this? That could be something, maybe you're thinking of applying for a job at that host institution, or you're thinking of writing a paper on something that they've written about, all kinds of reasons why you might want to talk to new people and meet them. So yeah, that would be my main thing, like plan it and then like make it a movable plan. What about you, Charlotte?
I agree with you. I love getting the notebook through the post or in the email that's like, here is all of the conference sessions. And I'm not going to lie, and this is going to show my age, I treat it a little bit like looking at the Argos catalogue at Christmas. I will go through, I will highlight papers that sound interesting. Like I won't even look at the names first of all, I'll just go through and highlight, does that paper sound interesting? Often because of the, stuff I work on, I'll go, okay, who's speaking about Chaucer's Dream Visions, for example? And I'll go and find all of those papers. And then I'll start to be like, is anyone I know speaking? Can I go and see them? So it's kind of in a sort of an elimination process of what's in, who's speaking about Chaucer, who's speaking about, for me at the moment, I'm talking about photography and the visual arts, like who's speaking about kind of contemporary practice, who's who of my friends are going, or is there anyone I admire that I want to go and see? What is just sounding interesting, like nothing related to what I do, but just kind of fun.
Yeah.
I once went to a conference and I sat in a paper on video games. I don't like video games. I'm not massively into them, but like the papers sounded super interesting. So that's what I do. I highlight, play around with it. And I'm very lucky with these big conferences that I do know people in my field. So it is quite a good fun opportunity to kind of catch up with people or meet people. And even in the bigger ones where maybe you've only met someone once or twice, like they're in the same position as you. Remember, they are in the same position as you. They don't know anyone else, or they only know a couple of people. So sending an email to say, let's catch up, even if you don't, it's kind of a way to make you feel less like you're less overwhelmed with such a big space.
I've never been to one of these big like field flagship conferences. I'm going to my first in about a month, where I will be seeing Charlie amongst other people.
And Rachel.
So and indeed Rachel will be there as well. Stand by, listeners, for a surprise, a little Christmas present. Little Easter egg.
God, yes. Live
Yeah.
recording.
You didn't hear it from Charlotte. But yeah, so I've never been to one that's like so big that I really had to spend time on the program in advance, but I should probably do that before
Yeah, and for that
July.
one, it's such a big conference that they've got their own app, and the program is on the app, and you can like highlight sessions that you want to go to, and it automatically adds them to your calendar on the app.
Oh
And
my God.
you can like highlight people whose papers you want to go and see. It's like it's so organized. So this
Oh
conference
my
that
God.
Olivia and
That's
I, yeah,
incredible. I have not had
I-
any. Wow. Okay, you guys
honestly,
clearly work
there are
in
like
fields where technology
3,000
is.
people there,
Oh,
which is massive for our field. And so you need an app. Otherwise, you're going to, yes, crazy. So, yeah, we'll talk about
Right.
that.
I also wanted to very briefly touch on preparing for a conference involving applying for funding to go,
Oh,
because I think a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
people
yeah.
won't necessarily have much experience of doing that, and I don't have much experience of doing that. I've been very lucky thus far in that my project has been part of a larger funded project, and so I had a kind of travel budget for most of my PhD. That ended earlier this year, and so the conference that I'm going to next month, I've had to apply for funding for it, and I didn't really know where that was going to come from, and I didn't really have any clear sources of funding. But I just wanted to mention that like it can be quite difficult to get funding to go to a conference. It can be even more difficult if you're not giving a paper. So if there's a conference you really want to go to, getting a paper, trying to get a paper in is a good way of
Yeah,
then convincing people to give you money to go, and that
yeah,
obviously involves a lot more work. But in my experience, that's the case. You're more likely to be able to get funding out of people if you're giving a paper. Um, and when I say people, I guess I'm referring to like even if your department doesn't advertise it, write to the chair of your department, and say, I want to go to this conference for X, Y, and Z reasons, and this is how much money I need to do it. Please, can I have that? I don't know, does anybody have any more quick off? Sometimes conferences have their own bursary packages.
yeah.
So if you register far enough in advance, you can write to the organizers and say, hello, I don't have funding to go to this thing, but I'd like to give a paper.
Mm.
They won't normally give those bursaries, I think, for people who aren't giving a paper. Some might, but very few. So
you're
yeah, just being on top of things in advance and thinking about funding is worth doing.
I mean, you're exactly correct. My background, I did my PhD part-time. I self-funded my entire PhD, and I talk about these conferences, but I could only go to these conferences because I applied to multiple layers of funding and used my own money to go to them. So
Wow.
it's a privilege to go to a conference. If you can go to a conference for the sake of going to a conference, it is a privilege. I think the one I was talking about in Toronto, I applied to the conference organizers. They had a graduate scholarship package that I applied to. My university had a school level like bit of money you could apply for. The department had a little bit of money you could apply for. So it never covered all of it. I chose to make part of it into a holiday and saved up for it, but I did apply to multiple layers of funding to do that.
Yeah.
And you are correct. If you are not giving a paper, there is technically not, you can make cases, but if it's super relevant to your work, you also need to get your supervisors to write a little thing to say, yep, this is super important for them. This is why they do it. So it is more work. So what I would say is if these are big international conferences or big conferences that you want to go to that are either across the UK, if you are based in the UK, or international, you have to plan in advance in the sense of come up with a paper, try and get a paper so you can be accepted on a panel, or even create your own. What I did was I created my own session, and that's how I got to go
Yeah,
to
I've done that so
Brilliant.
many times.
particular
Yeah.
got accepted. And then from there, then you can start looking at different funding options. But usually universities have department level, school level, and then often the big conference institutions will have extra funding.
Yeah,
that you
and
can apply for.
I'd say if I can, like we can have a whole episode on how to get funding, because like how to write funding application forms and stuff is a really complicated process. But for me, the big thing is the outputs that are going to come from the conference. So you want to be thinking ahead and thinking about saying things like attending this conference and giving this paper will provide a valuable foundation for this article that I want to write, or it's going to feed into chapter 3 of my PhD thesis, which is on exactly the themes that this conference is about. So justifying your attendance by that output is the main thing that I think you can do to be convincing. Okay, great. So I think we've covered most of the things relating to before you go to a conference. So I wanted to spend some time thinking about probably like the main, maybe it's not the main reason we go to conferences. It should be on paper. And that's the topic of actually being in a conference session. So I just wanted to think about like what we do in conference sessions, how we behave, how people can sometimes misbehave, all kinds of like complicated dynamics, right? So I've got a question for you guys. I'll ask Olivia first because you mentioned knitting earlier. What do you actually do when you're listening to a paper? Like, what are you doing when someone is sprouting forth about their soul in front of the
I
world?
certainly don't take. I certainly don't take my knitting.
People do.
Although I know
No,
some
but can
people
you
do.
imagine the
Yeah.
clacking in the background? You just know, and that would
Honestly, I
brilliant.
have been to many conferences where there are people knitting, and Olivia, I think that includes your supervisor, but I'm not sure.
Amazing. Okay, well in that case, I'm not casting any aspersions on it. You can get, there are wooden knitting needles, so, and they don't clack. But so I took my knitting once to a classical music concert, and I immediately felt self-conscious about it, and that was me in the audience, like with the lights down and everything. So I can't knit while I'm trying to concentrate on something. But what do I do? So during the pandemic, in all honesty, when everything was online,
Yeah.
I usually made myself lunch. So more often than not, I would have commons papers on and actually I'm not including the conferences that we had online because there were loads of those during the pandemic. But anyway, I would have things on in the background, and I found it easier to do things while I would like things around the house, like domestic chores and that kind of thing, while I was listening, because there's something about sitting in your own, everybody's just sick of sitting in their own house, and it's hard to concentrate just by staring at a computer screen.
Yeah.
Kind of that aside, what if we're talking about like in-person conferences, which I think we kind of are, I just sit and listen. Is that
I mean, is that
bad?
revolutionary? No.
Is that boring? Maybe I take some notes.
Let ask Charlotte then. You've got something different.
Yeah, try Charlotte.
Well, I think it depends on how I'm feeling about the paper at the time that I'm listening to it, and what time of day the paper is at, and was the disco the night before, or is it after lunch? Those are key components to my conference going. However, my brain runs at 100 miles an hour, and I cannot sit there and listen and take it all in, because if someone says something that I immediately find interesting, or I like their phrasing, or they link to something that I'm working on, or it's a surprise commentary, I have to write it down. But I don't write full sentences, and I definitely don't, paraphrase what they're saying really. I tend to create lots and lots and lots and lots of mind maps. I will throw it. It will not be linear. Like if you look at my conference notebooks, and when I moved out of my family home, my mum was like, "Can we get rid of this box of conference notebooks?" Essentially, because all it is pages of like scribbles, upside, downside, phrases, words, quotes, or look back at that, or my own thoughts.
I need to see this.
Yeah, it sounds like quite
probably
an archive.
The biggest insight into the side of my brain that you can get is me at a conference. I think that's because it helps me focus. It helps me kind of channel my thinking. And if I've suddenly then had an idea about my own work, then I can start putting it down, right? I can start connecting the dots. It does mean potentially I don't hear all of everyone's paper, that sometimes things will pass me and I'll have to catch up. But I think that's the way that I do it. I'm also someone that responds to something kind of in the moment. So I'm not afraid to ask questions. I am that person that will ask a question if I feel it's relevant. Like if I feel like it's, you know, there's something actually to expand from something. I'm not a, oh, I have a comment kind of person. However, that will come from me having made scribbles on my page. Or if someone else is asking questions, I will then riff off that, and that's how I work. That's how my brain works. That's how I work in these kind of spaces, which I get is very nervy if you're in a international big conference and there's lots of big cheeses sitting around. Like maybe you don't want to be doing that, but maybe in a smaller conference or in a seminar space, you know, that's great. Yeah. And one thing I did want to say, and I was thinking about this earlier, is especially when you're preparing for conference or you're thinking about going to your first ever conference or anything like that, remember, this is not a university lecture. You are not an undergrad anymore. You do not have to make notes if you don't want to. You can just sit there and listen, right? You can just glean things from it. It can just be, this is the topic of something you went to today. You don't have to have important, impressive thoughts.
You're not being tested on it.
You're not being tested on it.
You're not being tested on it.
You don't have to write anything about it. Like, remember, this is for you to immerse yourself in
ideas,
the field and in those ideas and with the people and with what's happening. And that's.
Do you do something, Charlie?
So I'm very similar to Charlotte. I've got a busy brain. I need to write things down in order to concentrate. Otherwise, my brain goes somewhere else. I sometimes sit there in the middle of a conference paper and think, why am I here? Why are any of us here? Like, why couldn't I have just read this? Why are we all in a room? And that's my kind of existential side coming out a bit there. But I think the reason we're there is, as you mentioned earlier, it's community, and it's like feeling like you're not the only one doing this very lonesome work. One thing
can I tell you why? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You can't tell me. Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
It's like I always try and write down questions to ask the speaker. So I never want to be in a room where there are no questions, because like I think it's kind to ask questions to the speaker, even if it's just, you touched on this, can you tell us more about this? And that's like a really
silence absolutely kills me. I know,
it's devastating.
I'm constantly trying to think, what question can I ask? And I'll like have a page of notes, and at the bottom I've got a subheading called questions, and then I'll like write down some possible questions. I'll have another subheading called like important takeaways or something like that apply to my own work. And then the main part of the page is just writing down what the person said, so that I can concentrate basically, and maybe refer back to it if I need to.
Charlie, that is so structured. That is unbelievably structured.
What do you really want to tell me, Olivia? Can I tell you?
Well, okay. So the point, what you said about like having questions to ask people was going to bring me to what I was going to say, which is that I think it's important to be able to ask questions, and to like part of the reason that we're there, part of the reason that you're not reading it as a paper, as a published paper, you're listening to it as a lecture, as it were, is because there's a discussion involved, and you're there. You're there to be able to ask questions of the speaker. And I think actually, I think actually the three of us are maybe a little unusual in this sense, or at least in the minority, in the sense that I do frequently get the sense that a lot of people don't feel it's their responsibility to ask questions. And like, I don't think you have to feel it's your responsibility, but like, I think a lot of people are perfectly content to be like, oh, okay, paper's over, nothing more to say. I couldn't possibly put my hand up or impinge on other people's time by asking a question. And my most controversial opinion about conferences and workshops and seminars is that the Q&A is not just a Q&A. It should be a discussion. my most controversial opinion is that we're there to talk to this person giving the paper about their paper and exchange ideas, and not just put our hand up and say, here is my 5-word question, thank you for your time. And a lot of people are like, for God's sake, stop, could the audience member stop voicing their own opinion in the process of asking their question? But I have a lot of time for that, and I'd always, when I'm chairing sessions and conferences, I will always try to facilitate that discussion rather than just the Q&A, because I think that's a big part of as you say, like, why are we here in this room rather than all comfortable at home
I
reading
guess
this
like that runs into a problem when the papers run over and there isn't much time. So then if anyone listening is thinking, I'm chairing at a conference, how do I do it, what should I do, I'd say like that's maybe a piece of advice. If you're running short on time, give a brief to the room that they should keep their questions short, and any discussion can happen afterwards in the coffee break.
Yeah, definitely keep to time.
But I definitely
keeping
think
to time is sacred.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Olivia. Like, it is a discussion. It should be
more of a discussion. I think often if people are bringing new ideas that aren't fully formed, which is correct for a paper, people have lots of people don't want to ask questions about things they don't have any understanding of, because then that shows a mutual level of like, okay, we don't know what we're talking about, which is unnatural for academics. However,
my whole life.
Yes, however, we are by our nature curious and interested in learning, and so coming from the point and not being afraid to be like, I found this so interesting for this reason. I don't know anything about this, but again, like you said, can we talk more about this? Or, for example, you mentioned this aspect. Have you thought about this aspect? It could be wildly different. They could turn around and go, no, I've not really thought about that. And that's okay.
Yeah. Or that's even the subject of your research is on a wildly different topic to mine, but here is how I perceived it as relating to my research. What do you think of that? Or does that seem correct to you? Or, I like that exchange. And I get, again, maybe the three of us are unusual in this sense, but that's what I get out of conferences.
It's like a way to, if you've never met this person before, it's like a way to say like, hi, I'm here. Shall we talk about this at some point? Or like, I often go in a room where I don't really know the topic and I don't know that many people there. If I'm in that situation, I'll try and make myself ask a question, because I'm then like introducing myself a little bit to everybody, and then people are more likely to like want to chat about more stuff afterwards. I mean, we should say, if you really just want to go to a session, sit in the corner, listen, and not talk to anybody at any point and leave at the end, that is fine. There are
very much your prerogative.
You happen to invite someone on who is a talker and who likes to talk to lots of people.
That's why we invited you on.
But the point is also, people should not feel afraid to ask questions or like worried that your question is going to come across as dumb.
And like, also, if you really can't do it, or you run out of time, or you like enthusiasm and stuff in the session, then I love it when people email me after conferences and say, I went to your paper, I really liked it, can we talk more about this? And I've had it before where people have emailed me stuff like that, or I've emailed them, and then we've like had an online chat and had a really cool discussion about stuff like for an hour.
I don't know about either of you, but for me, when I did a kind of lecture recently, it was the first one I'd done in a really long time, and I got asked some questions and I really enjoyed it. Like, in the sense that, in a way that I never have done before. When I done papers when I was doing my PhD, like, you feel a lot of pressure. You feel like you should answer the question correctly, and you feel like you need to give a real succinct answer, and you don't want to look like you don't know anything. And there's a lot of unknown pressure, and when you're a PhD student, and I can't say I've totally got rid of that now. It does depend on the space with which you're giving the paper, but I think when I talk, which doesn't always go to plan, but it does mean that I come up with ideas when people ask me questions or when people are speaking to me. So actually, they're really great for the speaker, whether you do it in the session, after the session, via email, whether it's for your own gain or just because you're interested. But again, just to kind of echo back, you don't have to do anything. Like, just writing, doodling.
Wallflowers.
Exactly. Doing something, doodling your own page, being there for the vibe. That's also okay.
So I think that takes us quite neatly on to talk about this horrible word. I hate this word, right?
Everybody in academia hates this word. But
the word is networking, right? So some of these things we've talked about already, but I want to know if either of you have got different opinions about this, actually. Like, what's your approach to networking at conferences? What do you think it's for? Or like, how do you do it? Whatever, it's a horrible word. Olivia's looking so uncomfortable, so I'm desperate to ask Olivia this question first. Olivia, what's networking for? How'd you do it? Tell me about networking.
So I'm quite a sociable and outgoing person, and I'm not really generally afraid to introduce myself to people. The moment I think of it as networking, I can't do it.
Yeah.
The moment I tell myself you're at a conference, you need to be networking, I shrivel up, I hide in the corner, I drink my cup of bad coffee, and I run away. So instead, I have to treat it as like you're making new friends. You're just here to get to know people.
Yeah.
And then I can wander up to somebody and say, hi, how are you? Or, like perch at the edge of somebody else's conversation circle and say, hi, I hope you don't mind if I interrupt, or, whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't think of it as professional networking. I can't think of it as structured like that.
I think we also have to remember that if you're talking about networking with senior academics or people in further along than you are in your current environment, they are also there for the same reasons we are there at that conference, to meet their friends, to hang out, to give a paper, to find something interesting, to find something new, to support their students, or to see what's out there. So yes, they may be professor of blah, 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 or they are senior academic at this institution and ooh, sparkly. But they are also people, and often not a lot of academics are super outgoing. So it may be up to you to make those introductions because that's something you want to do. I also wouldn't be afraid of and this is very much a Charlotte method, of just talking about whatever is happening, like the weather, like literally
the
small
sport.
talk, the sport, like small talk conversation, because that will get you over your fear of having a conversation with someone who is super important, essentially. And you can also get people to introduce you to people. One of my supervisors is particularly good at this, and you'll be like, I want to meet this person. They're like, okay, let me introduce you, like no harm in doing that. And that way
your supervisor is a really good resource for that if they're at the same conference you are, is to tell them.
It sounds like a really bad version of like speed dating.
Yes.
But with like even more pressure to change the course of your life.
Yeah, but
okay, this is how best not to think about it.
Yes, definitely don't do that. But I think
don't think about it that way, listeners.
I also just want to meet people who are at my stage, who are figuring out ideas. Like, yes, okay, this is where lots of you get to listen to your bibliography in person, right? That's the best bit about a conference as well. But you are also meeting students, PhD students from across the country, from across the from across the world, really. And those are the people who you will can form relationships with, which means that you can maybe do a panel together, or you can create another project, or you know, something like this. I met Olivia. Olivia's like, come on this podcast. Like, things don't happen because you're like, I really loved your work, it was so good. Things happen because you sat down next to someone at a conference, you discussed the day-to-day, and you continued that conversation. Like,
so yeah, I'd say like maybe people don't need tips on like what to actually say, but like my favorite types of things that people say at conferences are things like obviously what do you work on will be like the main one. So like practice what your answer is going to be to that before you go to the conference. Like what's your field, what's your specialism, where do you work, that kind of thing. But like the most useful questions people can ask are like what you doing next, or like what are you reading at the moment, or like I don't know what are you hoping to publish in the next however many months or whatever. People ask me that kind of stuff, and like it can get boring and repetitive because you just think I don't want to talk about that stuff. But professionally, it can be a really good topic to talk about. Like Charlotte said, the weather, or like what did you do last night, or like you know who are your friends at the conference, what you're up to later, that kind of thing. Like
do you who else do you know here? That's one I
that's a
pull
good
out a
one.
lot.
Yeah. If the answer's nobody, then they'll go, right, I'm going to help you, and they'll like I don't know, look after you.
Yeah, exactly.
But
top question. Top question. Do you want to go to the pub?
Yeah.
My flatmate is a pro at networking, and she does it by even if she hasn't met anybody at that conference all day, even if everybody's been kind of cold and cliquey and distant, which doesn't happen very often, but even if that's the case, she'll just go up to somebody and say, should we go to the pub?
Yeah.
And she gets a lot out of it after that.
I think also it's worth remembering that there are like different personality types at conferences, and when I go to ones where I know a good number of the people there already, you can already tell like the groups that are going to like go off. So you get these like really intense groups that only talk about work, and they're hyper serious, and they're all wearing suits and very formal clothes, and they only want to talk about work. And then in the corner you've got like me and a few others like having a beer and talking about football or whatever, and like nothing to do with the conference. And then you'll have like I don't know, people who've known each other for years and years and years all in another corner, and they're chatting about the old days and stuff. So it's really about like what type of person you are and like where you feel most comfortable. Because if you are a really intense work focused person, then you know, find your crowd and you'll find them something.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll definitely find your people.
I also think that another really important tip that I have only recently started doing, and it's helped me a lot, is that I write down people's names. And I am terrible where like someone will come up to me and chat to me at a conference, go, hi, I'm Charlie, and they'll go, yeah, I know, we met last year, my name's whatever, and I'm like, oh no, happened again. I've got a terrible memory related to how my brain works. And so I tend to write down people's names. It looks weird, right, if you're in the middle of a corridor or whatever and you're chatting, but like it's more, you know, it's better to write down their name and remember it than like forget them and say, who are you again? They go like, we met.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next topic?
Okay, so quite after that stressful speed dating experience, how does one relax?
Charlotte, come on.
Oh,
how do you guys relax? Yeah, Charlotte, how do you relax?
Well, when I go to a conference, which is like a, you know, multi-day, you know, bonanza.
Yeah,
Big thing.
we're into that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't go to every paper. That's important. However, because of my, you know, part-timeness and all of that, like for me, it is the only opportunity that I get to be immersed in those situations. So actually, I don't tend to take myself away fully. So maybe if I want a break, I'll sit in the coffee shop, but I'll sit in the coffee shop on campus. Like I'll always kind of be in the environment.
You want to keep your toe in the water. You don't want to separate yourself from it completely.
Yeah, just because like it's not something I get to do on a daily basis. It's like part of the experience, I think, is having the energy for it.
Mm.
But I do agree that like just a little bit of reflection, alone time, maybe going back to your room and kind of packing stuff away, getting a new notebook out, like, you know, there,
Yeah.
I get that kind of
It's
just
interesting.
separation.
It's interesting that the part-timeness influences that, because
Yeah.
I'm not part-time, but I completely understand that, because for me, because it's kind of my whole life all of the time, and I'm sort of desperate to try to get away from my thesis sometimes. You know, going to a conference and feeling totally immersed in it. Sometimes I'm like, I need like during the lunch break, I actually don't want to network. I actually just want to go explore
I
the city I'm
know.
in. For
Oh,
example, I really like exploring the cities that I'm in, but it's, especially if I don't know them, but it's really interesting because I can totally imagine, because when I wasn't working in academia, all I wanted to do was either be in the library or at a conference. So I can completely understand that having that thing that already takes you away from it means that when you're in the midst of it, you're like, I want to be here. I really care, and I have the energy, and I'm really here for it.
so
Whereas I maybe don't appreciate it as much.
my like downtime thing, it relates to what both of you have said. Because for a while I did the whole like, I need some quiet time, my brain's burned out, I need to sit in my room and not talk to anyone for a while. But actually, that makes me feel worse because I'm the type of
Uh,
person whose brain will go off in these weird places. And I sit there and think, how have I sat here for an hour and not done anything useful? This is a work trip. You've got to be doing work stuff. So for me, what's developed recently is I've got a few really close friends in academia. Some of our podcasters are some of them. And what I tend to do is like say to somebody, I'm going to have this session off. Can we just go and get a cup of tea somewhere and just chill out? Just, you know,
Mm.
one on one chatting, or like a group of three of us just chatting. And
Mm.
like that helps me switch off from the whole, you know, heavy on
Professionalism stuff.
conference thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if they're people I know really well, I can ask about their families and like their personal life and stuff. It's so important to have those friends, I think. So like listeners, if you like meet people and you make friends like this, like keep those friendships because they're really, really important, I think.
Yeah,
The other thing I
I'm
like,
gonna echo that.
yeah, come on, come
I'm
on.
gonna echo that massively. Like I said, like I think I said at the beginning, but lots of my very close friends are in my field, or tangentially linked to my field, not so much anymore. But and you know, at the big conferences, if you do just want to sit outside and have a coffee and just chat about something random, and you don't have to engage your brain in the way that you do when you're sitting in a conference paper trying to listen, or you've just spent the last 10 minutes pitching yourself or feeling like you're
Yeah.
pitching yourself. Yeah, it's definitely just like doing different bits of talking, but for me anyway, definitely kind of like staying within the environment.
I feel like a lot of the stuff we're saying on this podcast is like when you go to a conference, don't do work. But we don't mean that at all.
No, but
But it is work.
yeah,
You just got to recognize that it is just being there
Mm,
is doing work.
yeah.
That's part of the job description.
I think
Um,
also like you know, just because you're not writing and you're not in a library doesn't mean you aren't
yeah.
thinking, doesn't mean you
Yeah.
aren't coming up with the questions you come up with could be questions you put to your own work. Like the people you meet, oh, that's something to read when I get back. Like there's so much you're gaining from it. Even if you sit back and read all your doodles and go, oh, yeah, okay, I want that one word from the 9 pages of
Yeah.
mind maps that I've written. But like you'll come up with something, even if it's a different idea, even if it's a new idea.
Or
Something.
even like for me, like when I leave, the biggest thing I get is like motivation to like
Yes.
do stuff, like energy. And
Hmm.
like I've just
Yeah.
been away on a archive trip. I went to Dublin for a couple of
Oh,
days,
but
really
that's fun.
Oh,
beautiful.
very nice.
Second
Yeah.
time I've been there. But my like overriding emotion at the moment is dynamism and like do stuff because that's given me the energy to do that. And I get that from conferences too. Um,
Yeah. Nice.
and I keep wanting to say this, but the thing that I will also add, I think that's my like last big tip on relaxing, is uh, exercise. So like, it's not for everybody, but
Mm.
like I like running. When I go to conferences, I take my trainers and I'll go for like half an hour, just a way to explore the city, a way to get out of that bubble. One of the reasons I run is because it like helps me decompress my brain. And so like I do that at conferences. At the big conference that Olivia and I are going to in about a month, I organise a football match on the last day, and
Oh my
like
God.
sort
Yay,
of
that's cool.
10 to 15 of us will all run around and like think of academics playing football, soccer, you know, they're not great. But it makes me look really good at football, so I like that. But it's also a way to meet people. Like I know people from that football match that have nothing to do with my field of research, but I can tell you what foot they kick the ball with and how good they are at football and like where they work. So like think of those opportunities as well. Is there a run going on at the conference, or is there a walk? I don't know, anything. Do people want to go to the gym? That kind of thing. Whatever. Yes, Charlotte.
I would also say, if you are a PhD student going to conferences, a couple of two top tips that I would say, and it's not for everyone, but I would say if you are going to a conference which is a multi-day conference, try and get accommodation within the university halls.
Because it's cheap.
Because it's cheap. B, because you usually get a breakfast buffet. So I'm just going to put that out there. Cheap, A, B, breakfast buffet, and C, so will other PhD students be in that environment, right?
Yeah,
so you see them at breakfast, you will sit down, you will have a conversation, and you can have those general chat conversations, because no one wants to talk about I'm just trying to think of a topic then, but no one wants to talk about
physics.
Yeah, exactly. No one wants to talk about like some in-depth, what does this word mean at 8 a.m.
Social theory.
At 8 a.m. in the morning. Like it's just not,
Yeah.
no one's had enough caffeine for that. So especially after like day 2 or day 3. So I think that is an amazing top tip for PhD students doing it.
I like that.
Definitely.
And that's what I will be doing next month in Leeds.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep.
Leeds. Oh my God. I am very fond of the Leeds.
Rachael, Olivia and I will be there.
This is my first time. I'm looking forward to it.
It was the first conference I did as well, actually. No, it wasn't. Actually, no, it was the second conference, but still.
So if anyone's thinking, what the hell, Leeds, what the hell?
Sorry.
A really big conference of medieval scholars at Leeds every year in July, over 3,000 people there.
The International Medieval Congress.
Probably
it is the flagship conference in our field.
Yeah. I think there's probably like 30 parallel sessions that you can pick to at any one point. It's crazy. Which leads us really nicely on to a trailer here for something. We're going to wrap up in a minute, but it's worth mentioning that Olivia, Rachael, and I, and Lara, who joined us for our episode on having children in academia a while back, we're all going to be on a panel at the Leeds conference called From Dissertation to Book, How to Plan and Write Your First Academic Monograph. And it's sponsored by an academic publisher. We've got content from an academic publisher who's going to be there as well to join us, Rosie, who you will all meet on a future podcast very soon. And we're basically going to be chatting about writing a monograph, planning a monograph, pitching a monograph to a publisher, and all those kinds of things. Now, that's a session at the conference. So if you're a medievalist and you're going to the International Medieval Congress, please come, because you'll
come along,
that session. But if you are not, and you want to know more about publishing, you want to know more about monographs, we are going to record it and make it our first live show on this podcast. So we're not going to broadcast it live, but we're going to record it live. We're going to record the
coming to you live.
Yeah, like bring the audience to you. So hopefully that's going to be really good fun. We've got some issues to get around with technology and permissions and so on, but that's for me and Olivia to worry about. We're really looking forward to that. So please do come along if you're at the conference, and if you're not, listen along and hear what we all sound like in a big room full of audience members. It should be really good fun.
And if you have any questions for us to pose to the panel members during that session, please do feel free to email them along or to send them to us on Blue Sky or on X. And if we can't shoehorn them into the main session, maybe we'll do a little Q&A at the end of the recorded session as well. So
yeah, really
your
good
chance to ask
idea.
your questions.
So the email address is ecrpodcasters@gmail.com if you want to use that. And we're ECR Podcasters on all the other socials. We're going to run out of time in a minute. So like, let's wrap up with my favorite type of wrap up, which is like, give me a thing to think about. Like, do this, don't do that. So like, Charlotte, you're like top tips for conferences. Yeah, give me like 3 top tips for conferences, quick fire.
Be curious, meet someone new, go to a panel of things that you would never usually go to.
Really
Love
cool.
that.
Super quick fire. Olivia, what have you got? No pressure.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to step away.
I like how you started all those with "don't be afraid to."
Yeah, there you go.
That was good.
Your turn, Charlie.
I'm gonna give 2. Don't be afraid to get drunk. Number 1. Second one, don't do it more than once per conference.
Excellent advice. And on that note.
And on that note, oh, top tip number 3. If you do meet someone who you're romantically attached to, step away, because you can create all kinds of car crashes in your field. If you really do love them in 6 months' time, then you can get together then. But like, that's not
Okay, we're wrapping
from
this up. We're wrapping this
experience.
up
That's
immediately.
speaking from watching other people.
That is definitely a whole another topic
Episode,
of going
yeah.
to conferences.
Yeah, love
My
in
God.
academia. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Right, on that note, I think
Okay, we're wrapping
finished.
that one up fast.
So I would like to say thank you for listening to the Early Career Researcher podcast. I've been Charlie, and I've been joined today by Olivia and Charlotte. Charlotte, Olivia, say goodbye to our dear listeners.
Bye. Thank you
Bye.
so
Thank
much
you.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
I really enjoyed
Absolutely.
this.
We'll
Thanks
have
for
you
coming,
back,
Charlotte.
Definitely. We'll have you
Yeah,
back. Been
brilliant.
great. Yes, thank you for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review on Spotify or get in touch with us through the usual channels if you want to leave feedback. We've been the Early Career Researcher podcast. We look forward to speaking to you again soon about lots of exciting topics relating to the life and work of early career researchers in the humanities. Goodbye.